The great palace of the Varkari Empire shone like a crystal mountain above the clouds of planet Virelon. Its tall spires glowed blue, powered by endless energy from the twin suns. Inside, alien nobles moved with slow grace, their silver robes brushing the polished floors. Every step echoed power, every word carried pride. They called themselves the First Race, rulers of 30 star systems. To them, other species were children or animals, and among them now stood a creature they had once called barbarian, a human. Captain Elias Ward stood in chains, surrounded by guards with 4 shining arms and sharp eyes. His uniform was torn, his face marked with battle dust, but his back was straight. He was the last survivor of the Terran Defense Fleet, destroyed in the recent war. The Varkari had expected easy victory over the primitive humans, yet the war had cost them thousands of ships. And still they had captured only one live human, Elias. The guards led him through the wide golden halls, past huge windows showing a city floating among clouds. Aliens stared as he passed, tall, elegant beings with glowing skin and thin ridges on their heads. Some looked curious, others disgusted. A few whispered words like animal, savage, and pet. Elias said nothing. He kept walking, his boots clicking on the shining floor. They brought him before the throne hall, a vast chamber where light itself seemed to bend around the seat of power. On the high platform sat Princess Lyra Varkari, heir to the Empire. She was younger than most expected, her face smooth and her 4 eyes glowing faintly silver. 2 guards stood on each side of her, and behind her, a massive banner of the Empire hung proudly. When Elias entered, the room fell silent. "Bring the human forward," Lyra said softly. Her voice was calm but carried authority. The guards pushed Elias ahead. He stopped a few meters from the throne. Lyra studied him carefully. "You are Captain Elias Ward of Earth's fleet, are you not?" "Yes," Elias said simply. "You fought against us," she continued. "You destroyed 3 of our cruisers before your capture." "I defended my people," Elias replied, his tone flat but steady. A murmur passed through the crowd of alien nobles. No one had expected the human to speak so directly, or so calmly. Lyra tilted her head. "You humans are interesting. You had no real fleet, no proper technology, and yet you caused chaos in our ranks. Tell me, Captain, why did you fight? You must have known it was hopeless." Elias looked straight at her. "Because surrender means slavery, and humans don't live on their knees." The hall went dead silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Several nobles gasped, and one guard reached for his weapon, but Lyra raised a hand. Her silver eyes glowed brighter. "Brave words for a prisoner." "Truth doesn't change because I'm in chains," Elias said. Lyra leaned back, thoughtful. No alien had ever spoken to her like that. Not even her generals. This human, this small and fragile creature, showed no fear at all. Later, Elias was taken to a crystal cell deep inside the palace. It was clean, with energy walls that glowed faint blue. From there, he could see the endless city outside, filled with ships flying between towers. He sat on the cold floor, thinking of Earth, of the people he'd lost, the fleet that had burned. He didn't know if any humans were left out there. Maybe he was the last. Hours passed before a soft voice broke the silence. "Do you need anything, human?" Elias turned to see a smaller alien standing outside the barrier. Unlike the others, this one looked afraid to even speak. "Water," Elias said simply. The alien blinked in surprise. "You don't demand food or comfort?" "I'm not here to demand anything," Elias replied. "Just trying to stay alive." The alien nodded slowly and left. Elias closed his eyes, exhaustion hitting him. But he didn't sleep long. Soon the hum of the cell faded and the blue light dimmed. Someone was entering. It was Princess Lyra. She had come without guards, her robes lighter, her steps quiet. She studied him through the dim light. "You speak with no fear," she said. "Even my generals stammer before me." "Why?" Elias looked up. "Because I've already faced death. What's left to fear after that?" Her 4 eyes blinked slowly, an alien gesture of surprise. "You humans, you fascinate me. You are small, fragile, yet you fought until the end." "Why?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because we always fight for something, not for conquest, but for people we love." "That's something you wouldn't understand." Lyra frowned slightly. "You think we do not love?" "Maybe you do," Elias said. "But your wars aren't about love. They're about control." The words hit her harder than she expected. No one had ever spoken so plainly to her. Lyra turned away, staring at the stars through the glass wall. "Perhaps control is all we know," she whispered. "Our empire has existed for 10,000 years. We have forgotten what it means to fight for survival." Elias said nothing. He didn't need to. His silence spoke louder than words. A day later, chaos erupted in the palace. A damaged transport ship returned from the front lines, carrying wounded Varkari soldiers. Their alien medics couldn't save them. Some had strange burns from human weapons that their technology couldn't treat. Elias, hearing the noise from his cell, demanded to be released. "Let me help," he said to the guards. They laughed. "A human helping Varkari soldiers? You must be mad." But Princess Lyra arrived soon after. When she saw the wounded, her calm broke. "They are dying. Someone do something." Elias stepped forward. "I can." Lyra hesitated, then gave a sharp order. "Open his cell." The guards obeyed. Elias ran to the soldiers, scanning their wounds. "Their cells are burning from plasma residue," he muttered. "You're cleaning it wrong." He tore strips from his own torn uniform and used a small medical kit he carried on his belt. Using pressure, water, and a simple mix of chemicals, he neutralized the burns. Within minutes, the soldiers' breathing steadied. The alien medics stared in disbelief. "How did you know this?" one asked. Elias looked up. "We fought wars on toxic worlds before. Humans adapt or die." Lyra watched every move. She saw not a barbarian, but a professional, calm, skilled, and dedicated. When the last wounded soldier was stabilized, she said softly, "You saved them. Even though they are your enemies." "They were dying," Elias said. "Doesn't matter whose side they're on." Lyra didn't reply. She turned to her guards. "Return him to his cell, unharmed." That night she sat in her private chamber thinking. The image of the human saving her soldiers would not leave her mind. His words echoed in her head. "We fight for people we love." She began searching the archives about Earth. What she found shocked her. A history of endless wars. Yes, but also survival through impossible odds. A species that rebuilt again and again no matter how much was lost. Humans were not weak. They were stubborn, emotional, unpredictable, and unstoppable when pushed. Lyra smiled slightly. "Perhaps he is not a prisoner," she whispered. "Perhaps he is a teacher." The next morning she entered the royal court. All nobles gathered, whispering about the strange human who had saved their soldiers. The queen was absent, but her advisors stood ready to judge. Lyra raised her hand. "I have made a decision," she announced. One elder noble bowed. "Your Highness, the human should be studied and executed." "He is a war enemy." "No," Lyra said firmly. "He is not an enemy. He is my advisor." The hall fell silent. Even the guards looked shocked. "You cannot be serious," one general shouted. "A human? A primitive creature? To advise the throne?" Lyra's voice turned sharp. "He has more wisdom than many of you. He saved our soldiers when you could not. He understands war and compassion in ways we do not." The nobles began to murmur angrily, but she continued. "From this day forward, Captain Elias Ward shall serve as my advisor in matters of war and peace." The air vibrated with disbelief. Some called it madness. Others saw it as insult. But Lyra didn't care. She had seen something none of them could see. Courage that no alien title could buy. Back in his cell, Elias didn't know what was coming next. When the guards came again, he expected punishment, maybe execution. Instead, one bowed slightly. "You are to appear before the court again. The princess has chosen you as her advisor." Elias blinked, unsure if he had heard right. "Her what?" The guard looked uneasy. "Advisor." "Congratulations, human." Elias laughed softly. The first real laugh since his capture. "Well," he said, "that's unexpected." He stood tall, straightened his torn jacket, and whispered to himself, "Let's see what happens next." Outside in the royal hall, the aliens waited in silence. The human walked forward again, not as a prisoner this time, but as something new. Something no one had ever seen before in the Empire. And somewhere above them all, in her hidden observatory, Queen Sarathia Varkari watched the human through crystal screens. Her voice was cold but curious. "So, this is the creature my daughter has chosen." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Let us see how long he survives." The morning began with silence across the royal city. From the high towers to the lowest markets, Everyone was talking about only one thing, the human who had been chosen as the princess's advisor. In the shining halls of the Varkari palace, nobles whispered in shock. Some were angry, others laughed. A few said it was madness. Never in the long history of the Empire had a non-Varkari held a royal position, especially not an alien from a backwater planet like Earth. But Princess Lyra Varkari didn't care what they said. She stood near her balcony, watching the sunrise paint the clouds pink and gold. She thought of the human, Captain Elias Ward, the man who had spoken to her without fear and had saved her soldiers without hesitation. He is different, she whispered to herself, and maybe that difference is what we need. When Elias entered the grand hall again, this time without chains, the room fell quiet. The same nobles who had once mocked him now watched with cold, judging eyes. He wore a clean uniform, though still human in design, simple, practical, with no glowing ornaments like Varkari clothes. 2 guards walked beside him but did not touch him. Lyra sat on her silver throne, calm and regal. When Elias stopped in front of her, she stood. "Captain Elias Ward," she said, "from today onward you will serve as my advisor. You will speak freely and guide me in matters of war and peace." Elias nodded. "I will do my best, Princess. But I must warn you, humans don't always say what others want to hear." A few nobles gasped. The courage in his voice was almost rude by Varkari standards. But Lyra only smiled faintly.
"That is exactly why I chose you. After the ceremony..."
She led him to her council chamber, a round room filled with star maps, floating holograms, and data crystals that shone like tiny suns. "This is where the Empire plans its future," she said. "Here we make decisions that shape the galaxy." Elias walked slowly around the room, studying everything. "You have technology that humans can only dream of," he said. "But maybe that's your weakness." Lyra turned toward him, surprised. "Weakness? How can technology be weakness?" Elias folded his arms. "Because you depend on it too much. Humans, we had to learn to think fast, to adapt. Sometimes we win because we don't follow rules. Machines can't do that." Lyra frowned slightly. "So you are saying we are too perfect?" Elias gave a small smile. "Perfection is a trap. It stops you from changing." Lyra fell silent, thinking about his words. The idea that perfection could be a flaw had never crossed her mind. She finally said, "Perhaps that is why your kind fought us so fiercely. Not because of strength, but because of your chaos." Elias chuckled softly. "Chaos keeps us alive." Over the next few days, Lyra and Elias met daily. They talked about war, politics, and history. Elias spoke of Earth, of how humans had survived ice ages, plagues, and endless wars, only to rise stronger every time. Lyra listened closely. "You humans have such a short lifespan, yet you burn brighter than most species I know," she said one day. "Why do you fight so hard for such a brief existence?" Elias answered, "Because that's all we have. Every moment matters when you know how little time you get." Lyra looked at him quietly, her 4 eyes reflecting light. "Maybe that's the difference," she said softly. "We live long, so we forget how precious time is." Their talks began to draw attention. Guards and servants would secretly stop to listen from behind doors. Rumors spread that the human was teaching the princess strange ideas that could change the Empire. One afternoon, Lyra invited Elias to the High Council meeting, where her top generals and advisors discussed strategy. When he entered the room, the conversation stopped. General Toryn, a tall Varkari with shining armor and 4 strong arms, glared at him. "Why is this creature here?" he asked coldly. Lyra replied calmly, "Because I value his mind," the general sneered. "A mind from a dying world? This is an insult to every soldier who fought for our empire." Elias spoke before Lyra could. "And yet that dying world made you bleed for every inch of space you took." Torryn's face darkened. "You speak boldly, human. Perhaps too boldly." Elias met his gaze without fear. "Would you rather I lie?" Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. She could see the general's pride cracking. The council meeting began. A hologram of a planet appeared. Nerath 4, one of the border worlds still in chaos after the war. Rebellion was spreading there, and the Varkari couldn't control it. General Toryn stepped forward. "The rebels hide in the southern jungles. Our ships bomb them from orbit, but they scatter like insects. I suggest complete surface cleansing." Lyra frowned. "That will kill civilians." Torrance shrugged. Civilians are resources. Resources can be replaced. Elias spoke quietly, but his words cut through the air. And what happens when fear replaces loyalty? The generals turned to him, annoyed. Elias stepped toward the hologram. You keep bombing them and they'll never stop fighting. You'll just make them martyrs. He pointed to the map. Humans learned this the hard way. Sometimes the best weapon isn't destruction. It's understanding. Talk to them. Offer peace before you crush them. General Torrance laughed harshly. Peace with insects? You humans think with your hearts, not your heads. Elias looked at him calmly. And that's why we win hearts, while you only win battles. The room went silent again. Lyra's gaze softened. Perhaps we have much to learn from this human. Later, as they walked through the palace gardens, Lyra turned to Elias. You risked much speaking to my generals that way. Elias shrugged. I've been yelled at by worse. Besides, I wasn't wrong. She laughed softly in a sound that surprised him. No, you were not. You embarrassed them. They are still talking about it. Elias smiled faintly. Then maybe they'll start thinking differently. Lyra stopped walking and looked at him seriously. You know, Captain, when I first saw you, I thought you were just a symbol. A way to show the court I was open-minded. But now I see you are more than that. Elias raised an eyebrow. And what am I now? She hesitated. A challenge to everything I was taught. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, the palace atmosphere began to change. Some nobles began to respect the humans' ideas. Others feared them. But Elias didn't care about power or titles. He only cared about teaching them what humanity had learned. Survival, unity, and compassion. One evening, Lyra arranged a private dinner. Only her, Elias, and a few guards. The hall was quiet, the stars visible through the transparent ceiling. Lyra looked at him curiously. Tell me, Elias, do you miss your world? Elias was silent for a moment. Every day, he said softly. I don't even know if Earth still stands. But missing it doesn't change anything. I can't go back, Lyra nodded slowly. Then perhaps, this is your new home. Elias looked up, surprised. Home? Among the people who tried to destroy mine? Her expression softened. Perhaps not your home then, but maybe your purpose. You are changing us whether you see it or not. Before he could reply, the hall doors opened suddenly. A messenger rushed in, bowing deeply. Your Highness, the messenger cried. A summons and from Her Majesty the Queen. Lyra stiffened. My mother? Yes, the messenger said nervously. She demands the presence of both you and the human. Elias frowned. The Queen wants to see me? The messenger nodded. She says she wishes to test the human's mind herself. Lyra turned pale. That's not good, she whispered. My mother tests people the way scientists test weapons. Elias gave a small smile. Well, I've survived worse than words, Lyra shook her head. You don't understand. My mother is not like me. She does not respect humans. She barely respects her own council. If you anger her, Elias interrupted gently, then she'll see what makes humans impossible to break. Lyra stared at him for a long moment, torn between fear and admiration. Finally, she said, Then may the stars protect you, Captain Ward. Later that night, Elias stood alone in his chamber. Through the window, he could see the twin moons of Vieillon shining over the city. He thought about the strange path that had led him here from a soldier, fighting for survival to an advisor in an alien empire. He didn't know what the Queen wanted, but he knew one thing for sure, and he wouldn't kneel, no matter what. As he looked at the alien sky, he whispered to himself, They think they're testing me, but maybe it's time someone tests them. In the shadows above the city, deep inside the royal tower, Queen Sarathia of Arkari watched him through crystal monitors. Her eyes glowed like burning stars. So this is the human my daughter admires, she said coldly. Let us see if he can impress a queen. She turned to her generals. Prepare the trial chamber. Tomorrow the human faces me. The next morning came with storm clouds over the shining city of Vieillon. Thunder rolled across the towers and flashes of light filled the alien sky. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Inside the royal palace, Captain Elias Ward stood quietly in front of a mirror. He wore his repaired human uniform, its dark cloth still carrying the scars of battle. His reflection showed calm eyes, but inside his heart, he felt a deep unease. He was about to face Queen Sarathia of Arkari, ruler of the most powerful empire in the galaxy, and the mother of Princess Lyra. Elias took a slow breath. "One wrong word and I'm dead," he whispered to himself. Then he smiled slightly. Well, nothing new. Princess Lyra arrived soon after, her silver robes trailing behind her. She looked nervous, something rare for her. "My mother has tested many beings," she said quietly. "Some never walk out of her chamber again. She doesn't kill them, but she breaks them." Elias gave her a calm look. "Then I'll just make sure I don't break." Lyra sighed. "You always act so confident. Do humans never fear?" Elias smiled faintly. "We fear plenty. We just don't let it decide for us." For a moment, Lyra looked at him, really looked, and felt something she couldn't name. Respect, admiration? Perhaps both. Finally, she said, "Remember, my mother sees emotion as weakness. She values only results. Speak carefully." Elias nodded. "Don't worry. I don't plan to die before lunch." Despite the fear, Lyra almost laughed. "Stars help you, human," she whispered. 2 guards entered. "The queen awaits," they said. Elias followed them through a long golden corridor lit by floating crystals. At the end stood a pair of tall doors that opened slowly, revealing the throne hall of the queen. The room was enormous, larger than any cathedral on Earth. Pillars of glowing stone reached high into the clouds. Rivers of light flowed along the floor, and above them a massive throne floated, surrounded by energy like fire and ice. And on that throne sat Queen Sarathia. She was taller than any other Varkari, her skin dark silver with faint blue veins glowing beneath it. Her 4 eyes burned with ancient intelligence. She had ruled for over 300 years, and it showed. Every movement was calm, measured, dangerous. When Elias stepped into the hall, every alien soldier knelt.
Only he remained standing. "So," the queen's voice echoed, smooth but cold. "This is the human who captured my daughter's attention." Elias bowed slightly. Respectful, but not submissive.
"Captain Elias, Ward of Earth, Your Majesty." Her 4 eyes scanned him from head to toe. "You are smaller than I imagined," she said. "And yet you have caused quite a storm in my palace." "I tend to do that," Elias replied. A few generals whispered angrily at his tone, but the queen raised a hand. "Silence," she leaned forward. "Tell me, human, why should I not have you executed for your crimes against my empire?" Elias met her gaze without flinching. "Because you'd be killing the only man willing to tell you the truth." The room went dead quiet. One of the generals hissed, "Insolence!" But the queen simply stared at him, then slowly began to smile. "Very well," she said. "Then tell me the truth, Captain Ward. Tell me what you think of my empire." Elias walked a few steps closer. His voice was calm. "It's powerful, rich, beautiful, but it's afraid." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Afraid?" "Yes," Elias said. "You conquered so many worlds that you've forgotten how to fight for something real. You rule with fear, not respect, and fear doesn't last forever." Gasps echoed through the hall. Several nobles stood ready to shout, but the queen raised her hand again. Her tone stayed soft. "Interesting. You think your little dying planet understands more than my empire?" Elias shook his head. "No. I think humans understand what happens when power stops listening." The queen stood, her tall form casting a shadow over the hall. "Words are easy, Captain. Let us see your actions." She raised her hand and the lights dimmed. The floor below began to shift and glow, transforming into a giant holographic battlefield. "This is my test of strategy," she declared. "A simulation of war. You will command our forces against a perfect enemy, one that adapts, learns, and never tires. Many of my generals have failed. If you fail too, you will never leave this room." Elias nodded slowly. "All right, let's play." In an instant, the room filled with moving lights. Armies of holographic ships appeared, glowing blue for the Varkari fleet and red for the enemy. The simulation began, a hostile alien swarm advancing across the map. "Your resources are limited," said the queen. "You have 5 fleets and 1 colony world to defend. You may command as you wish." Elias studied the display. The enemy's numbers were overwhelming. The Varkari commanders whispered that no one could win this, but Elias didn't look worried. He spoke softly, mostly to himself. "If this enemy thinks like you, they'll expect order. They'll expect formation, so let's give them chaos." He moved the blue holograms into strange patterns, Some ships appeared to retreat. Others moved sideways or powered down entirely. The generals looked confused. "Your Majesty," one said. "He's scattering our forces. It's suicide." The Queen said nothing. She only watched. A moment later, the simulation updated. The red swarm advanced aggressively, taking the bait. The retreating ships suddenly powered up again, attacking from behind. The others created explosions that blocked enemy sensors. Within minutes, half the Red Fleet was destroyed. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. Elias crossed his arms. War isn't about perfection. It's about surprise. And humans are very good at that. The Queen's expression changed. No longer amusement, but genuine curiosity. You use deception, unpredictability, even sacrifice. Elias nodded. Sometimes you lose a few to save many. We call it courage. She stared at him silently. The simulation ended, victory, but the Queen wasn't done. You are clever, human, she said. But strategy is not enough. She pressed a small crystal on her throne. The room's temperature dropped and the walls shifted again. Now Elias stood in a dark chamber filled with strange lights and sounds, a psychological illusion field. It could read his memories and project his fears. Let us see what you fear most, the Queen said. Suddenly, the walls transformed. Elias was standing on a destroyed battlefield, the ruins of Earth. The smell of burning metal filled the air. He saw fallen human soldiers, faces he recognized. His best friend, his crew, his commander, and were all dead. Then a shadow appeared. The Queen herself, enormous and glowing. Your species is gone. Her voice echoed. You failed them. You are alone. Elias clenched his fists. His heart pounded. But he didn't look away. He whispered, If that's fear, I've lived with it all my life. The illusion tried to twist to make him kneel, but Elias stepped forward instead. You don't understand humans, he said into the empty air. We don't stop because we're afraid. We keep going because we're afraid, and then we want to protect what little we have left. The illusion flickered. The battlefield vanished. Elias stood again in the throne hall, the field shutting down. The Queen stared at him, her face unreadable. For the first time she looked impressed. Remarkable, she said softly. You faced your own extinction and did not break. Elias straightened. Fear doesn't control us. It reminds us what we're fighting for. The Queen sat back slowly. Perhaps my daughter was right about you. Gasps filled the hall. The Queen rarely admitted anyone could be right about anything. She turned to her generals. This human's tactics defeated my best simulations. His mind resisted the illusion field. Tell me, who among you can claim the same? No one spoke. Then she looked back at Elias. You have something my empire has forgotten. The will to fight without certainty of victory. Elias smiled faintly. That's what being human is all about. After a long silence, the Queen rose and walked down the steps toward him. She stopped only a few inches away, her 4 eyes shining like molten stars. You came here as a prisoner, she said. Now you stand as an equal. She turned to her court. From this moment forward, Captain Elias Ward is granted the title of High Strategist of the Varkari Empire. He will advise both myself and my daughter. The hall erupted in disbelief. Some nobles shouted in protest. Others stood frozen. The Queen's voice cut through the noise like thunder. Silence. You will obey my command. The human has earned his place. She looked back at Elias. Do not disappoint me, Captain. The galaxy is changing, and perhaps your kind will change it with us. Elias bowed slightly. I'll do more than that, Your Majesty. I'll help you survive it. That night, as the city lights flickered below the palace, Princess Lyra visited him again. I heard what happened, she said softly. You passed her tests. My mother never praises anyone. Elias smiled tiredly. Then I guess I did all right. Lyra looked at him with a proud smile. You did more than all right. You showed her that even the mightiest empire can still learn something from a human. Elias looked out the window at the stars. Maybe now they'll start seeing us not as animals, but as equals. Lyra's voice grew gentle. She was astonished, Elias. My mother, the Queen, truly astonished. Elias chuckled softly. Guess humans still know how to surprise the galaxy. The Varkari Empire had not changed in centuries. Every planet obeyed the Queen. Every order came from the throne. Every life belonged to the crown. But that was before a human arrived. Now the Empire whispered a new name. Captain Elias Ward. the man who had outsmarted the Queen's tests and earned the impossible title of High Strategist. To the common people, he was a hero. To the nobles, he was a danger. To the Queen, he was a mystery. And to Princess Lyra, he was something more. A new role Elias stood in the center of the royal command room, staring at the massive holographic map of the galaxy. Red lights marked rebellion zones, colonies that had stopped sending tribute. General Korak, a tall and scarred alien with sharp blue armor, growled, "These worlds disrespect the Queen's rule. We should burn them as we always have." Elias looked at him calmly. "And lose thousands of soldiers? No, that's not how humans win wars," Korak sneered. "You think you know more about war than I do, human?" Elias pointed to the map. "No, I just know how to end one." He pressed a few keys and the map changed. "Look here. The rebels are starving. Their supply lines are cut. Instead of attacking, send medical aid and food ships. Make them loyal again by saving them, not destroying them," the generals murmured in confusion. "That's weakness," one of them hissed. Elias turned his head slowly. "No, that's power. You rule longer with loyalty than with fear." The Queen, who had been silently observing from her throne, spoke at last. "Explain." Elias walked closer, his voice steady. "Your people follow you because they fear you, but fear fades. Gratitude lasts generations. You can crush a planet once, but save it, and it will defend you forever." The room fell silent. Finally, the Queen nodded. "You may proceed, Captain. Send your aid ships." Korak slammed his fist on the table. "Your Majesty, this is madness." The Queen's voice turned sharp. "Silence, General. You will obey." Elias simply smiled. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I won't fail you." Seeds of change days passed. Elias's plan began to unfold. The Varkari aid fleets reached the rebel world, bringing food, medicine, and engineers. The aliens there, who once hated the Queen, now looked up in disbelief as her flag arrived not with weapons but with help. Reports soon flooded the palace. The rebellion has stopped. Local leaders have sworn loyalty again. Citizens are cheering the Queen's name. Elias stood in front of the command screen, his arms crossed. "Sometimes the best victory is the one where no one dies," he said quietly. Princess Lyra appeared beside him, smiling. "You've done what no one ever could. The people are calling you the human reformer. My mother is listening to you now more than any of her own generals." Elias laughed softly. "That's going to make me a lot of enemies." Lyra's smile faded a little. "You already have them. Many in the court think you're changing too much. They say you are making the Queen soft." Elias turned toward her. "Empires that don't change die. I'm not making her weaker. I'm making her stronger." Lyra looked at him for a moment, then nodded. "Maybe that's why she trusts you." Elias gave a small grin. "Or maybe she's just curious what I'll do next." The conspiracy that night, while the palace slept, a meeting took place in the shadows. General Korak stood with 3 other nobles, their faces hidden behind holographic masks. "The Queen is blinded by this human," Korak snarled. "He poisons her mind with talk of peace and mercy. If we don't act, he will destroy everything we built." One noble hissed, "You cannot attack him openly. The Queen would execute anyone who tries." "Then we strike in silence," Korak said. "We will make it look like rebels killed him. When the Queen loses her pet human, she'll return to strength and the old ways." The others nodded. "Agreed," Korak smiled coldly. "The human dies tomorrow." The ambush the next morning, Elias joined a diplomatic mission to Krath Station, a massive trade hub orbiting near rebel space. He believed it was safe. He had no idea Korak had arranged everything. As Elias walked through the docking bay, surrounded by guards, an explosion ripped through the air. "Ambush!" Someone shouted. Armed mercenaries poured in from every direction, alien assassins hired by Korak. Elias ducked behind a transport crate, drawing his human sidearm, a small but powerful plasma pistol. He fired 2 shots, taking down attackers who tried to flank him. Smoke filled the hangar, alarms screamed, and his guards fell one by one. "Ward, surrender!" one mercenary yelled. "We only want the human." Elias gritted his teeth. "Then come and get him." He grabbed a fallen alien rifle, rolled out from cover, and fired in controlled bursts. Each shot hit with perfect precision. The mercenaries were trained killers. But they didn't expect human tactics, quick movements, unpredictable angles, pure audacity. Within minutes, half of them were down. But there were too many. Elias was hit in the shoulder, fell behind a crate, and dropped his weapon. Blood dripped down his arm. He looked up at the glass window above. The stars of the galaxy shining cold and distant. He whispered, "Not yet." Then he reached for his wrist device, activating his emergency beacon. The princess's rescue back in the palace. Princess Lyra was reviewing reports when her screen flashed red. Emergency beacon. Elias Ward, it read. Her eyes widened. No. Without hesitation, she ran to the hangar. "Prepare my ship, now." The guards protested, but she ignored them. Within minutes, her royal cruiser shot into space, engines blazing. When she arrived at Krath Station, the place was in chaos. Smoke, fire, and dead mercenaries everywhere. "Elias," she called out. A faint voice came from the shadows. "Over here." She ran toward it and found him half-conscious, leaning against a damaged wall. His uniform was torn, his shoulder bleeding badly, but he was alive. Lyra knelt beside him, pressing a medical patch on his wound. "Who did this?" Elias coughed. "Your general, Korak. He wanted me gone." Lyra's face hardened with fury. "He will pay." Elias grabbed her wrist weakly. "No, don't kill him yet. Let's expose him." She stared at him in disbelief. "Even now you think of justice?" He smiled faintly. "Humans always do. Otherwise we become the monsters we fight." Lyra couldn't help but admire him. Even bleeding, even dying, he was still teaching her something. The Queen's judgment hours later. The Queen's throne room filled with tension. General Korak stood proudly before her, pretending loyalty. "Your Majesty," he said, "the human's death was caused by rebels near Krath Station. I'm ready to lead vengeance strikes." The Queen stared at him with her calm, cold eyes. "You seem certain of this." "Yes, my Queen. The rebels—" "Liar," came a voice from behind the doors. Everyone turned as the doors burst open. Princess Lyra entered, carrying Elias alive but bandaged. The hall erupted in shock. Korak's face went pale. "Impossible." Elias stood weakly but proudly. "Not so impossible, General." He tossed a small recording crystal onto the floor. "This contains everything, your secret meeting, your voice, your plan to kill me." The Queen activated it. The holographic image showed Korak plotting the assassination. The entire court fell silent. The Queen's eyes glowed bright with fury. "You dared betray your Queen." "In my own palace?" Korak dropped to his knees. "My Queen, forgive me. I only—" "Silence." The Queen's voice thundered. She raised her hand and the guards surrounded Korak instantly. Elias spoke softly. "Don't kill him. Let him stand trial. Show your people that justice is stronger than fear." The Queen looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "So be it. He will live." To face judgment. For the first time, the court saw their Queen obey a human's wisdom, and they were speechless. A new dawn later that night. The Queen met Elias in her private chamber. The stars shone through the glass ceiling, painting the room in silver light. "You have risked your life for my empire," she said. "You stopped a rebellion, survived betrayal, and taught me the power of mercy." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe your empire and mine aren't so different. We both just need someone brave enough to change the rules." The Queen studied him quietly, then said, "My daughter was right to choose you. You are not like the others." She paused, her voice softer than before. "You have given me something I thought I lost long ago. Hope." Elias bowed slightly. "Then I've done my duty." The Queen looked at the stars. "Perhaps one day your world and mine will fight side by side. Not as conqueror and subject, but as allies," Elias smiled. "I'd like that." As he walked away, Lyra appeared in the doorway, her eyes bright. "You did it, Elias. You changed her mind, changed everything." Elias looked back at her, his tone gentle. "No, we did." Lyra smiled softly. "My mother said she was astonished by you." Elias chuckled tiredly. "That makes two of you." And as the palace lights dimmed, the human who came as a prisoner now stood as the man who had changed an empire. But in the distance, beyond the stars, a new shadow was rising. Something far greater than rebellion. Something that even the Varkari Queen might not be ready for. The stars of Virelon's night sky twinkled cold and distant. But something stirred beyond the galaxy's edge. a darkness so vast that even the Varkari Empire's technology could barely detect it. Reports came in from border systems. Entire fleets disappearing without a trace, colonies vanishing, planets falling silent. The Varkari generals whispered fearfully. None knew what they were up against except one human. Captain Elias Ward stood on the observation deck of the Queen's flagship, staring at the empty reaches of space. Beside him, Princess Lyra and Queen Serathia watched in silence. "This doesn't look like a normal enemy," Elias said. "No fleet, no weapons, just destruction." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "No intelligence reports? No trace?" "Nothing," Elias replied. "It's like something alive, but not." Lyra's 4 silver eyes flickered with concern. "How can humans fight something we can't see?" Elias turned to her. "The same way we always fight, with courage, thinking, and unity. Fear isn't a weapon, but it can blind you. And we won't be blind." The warning from the void. Hours later, the sensors picked up a faint signal, distorted and alien. It came from the outer systems near the Hades Rift, a region considered too dangerous for normal exploration. Elias studied the readings. "It's moving fast, absorbing energy from stars. Whatever this is, it doesn't want to negotiate." General Korak, still furious from his earlier failure, shouted, "Then we send the fleet. Crush it before it reaches Virelon." Elias shook his head. "No, conventional weapons won't work. It's too fast, too intelligent. You'd throw lives away for nothing." The Queen leaned forward. "Then what do you suggest, human?" Elias met her gaze. "We fight smart. We lure it, and we strike where it can't expect." Lyra frowned. "And how do you plan to do that?" Elias smiled faintly. "By using the one thing it won't understand, human ingenuity." The planet Elias called the top officers and strategists into the command chamber. He outlined a bold plan. Use decoy ships to appear as weak targets. Gather intelligence from the enemy's energy absorption patterns. Lead it into a trap near a dying star where it cannot escape. Strike with a combination of Varkari plasma cannons and specially engineered human weapons. The generals were skeptical. "It's impossible," Korak shouted. "You would sacrifice thousands." Elias remained calm. "We won't sacrifice them. We'll make it think we are weak. But humans and Varkari working together are far stronger than any enemy." The Queen's eyes glowed with approval. "Execute your plan, Captain Ward, and may the stars protect you." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "We trust you," she said quietly. "Don't fail." Elias smiled. "We won't." The ambush in the Hades Rift. Days later, the combined fleet of humans and Varkari approached the Hades Rift. The empty void stretched endlessly, black as nothingness. Sensors flickered and died. Star energy seemed distorted. Elias gave final instructions. "Decoy ships ahead. Keep formation, but act weak. Observe and record. Let it come to us." The first lights of the enemy appeared, glowing tendrils of energy, massive and moving with impossible speed. Ships were pulled forward as if by gravity. Instruments overloaded instantly. "Brace!" Elias shouted. "Now!" Decoy ships slowed, appearing vulnerable. The enemy surged forward, and the trap was sprung. The dying star at the center of the rift released magnetic pulses, bending energy around it. The tendrils of the enemy became entangled in the energy. Its movement slowed. Elias's strategy worked perfectly. What seemed like chaos became control. The battle of the Rift Varkari plasma cannons fired in unison. Human weapons designed for adaptive targeting struck simultaneously. The enemy screamed, a noise that was felt more than heard, and energy exploded in every direction. Elias led the counterattack from the flagship, maneuvering ships through the rift's gravitational anomalies. His mind worked faster than the computers, predicting how the enemy would react. Lyra at his side coordinated communications between Varkari and human vessels. Her silver eyes shone with admiration. "It's amazing. How fast you think." Elias didn't answer. Focus was all that mattered. Despite the terror, his calm inspired the fleet. Human crews worked tirelessly alongside Varkari soldiers, following orders, adapting tactics, and executing every move with precision. Minutes felt like hours. The enemy thrashed, absorbing energy from the star, trying to escape, but the trap was perfect. Finally, Elias gave the command. Now, fire everything. The fleet unleashed every plasma cannon, missile, and human energy device simultaneously. The tendrils screamed and writhed before exploding into nothingness. A silence fell across the rift. For the first time, the galaxy had faced the enemy and survived. Aftermath, when the fleet returned, cheers filled the ships. Even the Varkari generals bowed to Elias. The Queen met him in the royal chamber. "You have done the impossible," she said, her voice proud. "You have saved the Empire, and perhaps the galaxy." Elias smiled humbly. "I didn't do it alone. Humans are stubborn, yes, but even stubbornness isn't enough without allies. Your people fought bravely." Lyra approached him, her voice soft. "You've shown them, shown all of us, what humans can do." He looked out at the stars, exhausted but satisfied. "We always surprise people. That's what keeps us alive." Recognition. The Queen called a public assembly, something she had not done in centuries. Every planet, every noble, and every soldier listened as she spoke. "This human," she declared, pointing to Elias, "has changed the way we think, the way we fight, and the way we lead. He is no longer an outsider. He is a strategist, a teacher, and an ally of the Varkari Empire." Applause erupted across the Empire. Even those who had once doubted him bowed. Korak, still furious but alive, whispered to himself, "A human rules with wisdom and courage. How can that be?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because we never stop. We never surrender, and we never forget why we fight." A new era weeks later, Elias walked through the palace gardens with Lyra. The city below shimmered like liquid silver under the twin suns. "Do you think it will last?" Lyra asked. "Change? It always lasts if people believe in it," Elias said. Lyra looked at him, admiration shining in her eyes. "You've done more than save lives. You've saved ideas. You've saved hope." Elias smiled. "Humans fight for more than survival. We fight for people, for ideals, and for the chance to see a better future." The Queen watched from the balcony above, her expression unreadable, yet her eyes glimmered with respect. She had seen centuries pass, empires rise and fall, but never a creature like Elias Ward, a human who defied expectations, outwitted generals, and stood as an equal to a queen. In the distance, the stars sparkled, silent witnesses to a new age, one where humans were no longer merely a species to observe, to underestimate, or to conquer. They were the spark that even the mightiest empires had to respect. Legacy Elias sat in the royal command room one last time that night, looking at the holographic maps of the galaxy. He had become a legend among the Varkari, the human who had changed not only the princess but the empire itself. Lyra approached him quietly. "Captain, no, Elias. Do you ever miss Earth?" Elias shook his head. "Every day, but home isn't always a planet. Sometimes it's people who believe in you, sometimes it's ideals, sometimes it's a galaxy that learns what you are capable of." Lyra smiled. "Then stay, human. You are needed here, more than you know." Elias stood, looking out at the stars. He had come as a prisoner, a soldier lost in space. Now he was a hero, a teacher, and a strategist who had reshaped an empire. And deep down, he knew humanity, small, fragile, unpredictable, had left a mark that no alien, no empire, and no queen could ever ignore. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "Humans never back down."